Thank you, Grace. Yeah, thank you, Grace. I think, Ratembo, if we can have a short break so that people can pick some little water or some tea, and then we can resume at 10, at 11, I mean 5 minutes after 11.
11:05.
Yes.
I think that's fine. Meanwhile, people can still continue posting questions so that when we resume, we'll have them answered. Thank you.
Yes, I just have a question that can be posted, and maybe during the break, people can respond. What is the attitude of people in your area of work, especially for multipliers, towards animals like pigs, donkeys, and how they are being used in the farming setup? What is the attitude of animals, and what forms of abuse do you observe in your areas of operation, and what needs to be done about that? Okay, so that can be posted, and after the break, I think we'll have some little sharing before I can get into the second part of the presentation, which is the management options.
Thank you. I'll post it. I've noted it. you can continue to answer the question, what is the attitude of people towards animals in your area? Those are like donkeys, pigs, and what form of abuse are the animals experiencing, and what needs to be done, so that when you resume at 11:05, we now interact with your answers, we exchange, we hear from you in terms of animal welfare. So continue posting. We resume in around 3 minutes. So I want to appreciate or recognize presence of Grace Misoy, Mr. Deritu, and Dr. Mihindo. Thank you.
Ratemo, as people still answer that, I just want to stop sharing this so that I can, or maybe I start sharing at exactly 11:05, huh?
No problem. You can share now so
Okay.
that you see it's there.
Okay. So can you see it?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, fine.
Grace, in case there are some comments, just proceed to read them out as we wait for 11:05. As we wait, Ferdinand, there's a question about rabbits. So I read it from Bogwa. My rabbits have been salivating green fluid, and since then they haven't been feeding well. What could be the problem, and how can I treat them? Maybe as we wait, you can attempt that question with the support of the Master trainer, of course. I repeat, my rabbits have been salivating green fluid, and since then they haven't been feeding well. What could be the problem, and how can I treat them? Thank you.
Ready to go, Ratemo?
Yes, before you go, there was a question I've asked. Did you get it, or I repeat?
You can repeat, please.
So the question about rabbits from Bogwa, and
Yep.
the question is, My rabbits have been salivating green fluid, and since then, they haven't been feeding well. What could be the problem and how can I treat them?
Okay, I will ask my colleagues and Ritu to help.
Yeah, we also have Collins from GPAC. Maybe you can also support Ritu in case you can answer. Yeah, and then once you answer, we're also going to have comments from Bigot about your question about attitude towards animals. Grace, do you want to respond? We will get back to the question. Ferdinand, maybe you can proceed and then we will answer the questions.
Maybe shortly. There is a condition in rabbits that is called rabbit slobber. This is a condition that causes a rabbit to produce an excessive amount of saliva. And of course, if it's eaten a lot of green stuff, then it can also be exhibited as green. And it's recognized because of the moisture around the rabbit face. One reason why rabbits should not be able to be, should always be given dry material so that they can be able to also have just water according to appetite. Otherwise, when they are hungry and they are given wet feeds, that can lead into a problem, and they can even bloat as a result of that.
Hello, can I also attempt?
Yep.
When rabbits are salivating, the condition is called drooling. It could be, I'm not 100% sure, but the condition is called drooling, and it's a dental disease, a very common problem for especially young rabbits, which is caused by some toxins from the food that they have eaten, probably. And it can also cause some ear infection. And if you look at the mouth around, you'll find that the hair has been removed, because of that condition, because of the saliva. So that condition is called drooling because of the kind of feeds that have been fed to the rabbits. Always make sure that you are feeding your rabbits using dehydrated pastures. Never feed your rabbits with very succulent materials, because that will cause drooling and also dental disease or bloating. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. So you can proceed with the answers from the question, Ratemo.
So,
or Grace?
Yes, I can proceed. So there are two comments. The first one is from Iwat. I think there's a lot of negative attitude, mainly for donkeys, with less being considered part of our systems, despite the good work they do, especially when it comes to principle of fairness, because they experience brutality, and health because of denial of food. Maybe on economic importance, perception on waste use and meat among farmers' communities. So there's need for more empowerment and protection of the animal. And then Elsie on Watch says, some farmers feel like pigs are dirty and should therefore live in a dirty structure and even feed them leftovers and dirty food. The farmers will also use donkeys to carry dairy cattle feeds and water. But the donkeys are not being given these feeds. They are then tethered somewhere to look for their own feeds. So I think those are the comments we have received so far. Maybe we can proceed, and then I also encourage our participants and listeners to continue posting questions around livestock integration. Thank you.
Yeah, so those are some of those attitudes prevent farmers from realizing full economic value of the animals that we have. And when we talk about animals fulfilling a livelihood, supporting their livelihoods, then our poverty could really be minimized when we take into consideration some of those organic agriculture principles, issues around fairness and animal welfare. And these are areas for potential capacity building. We may not be able to explore everything in these sessions here, but we just pointing out that these may be areas of need so that issues to do with animal welfare, especially in communities where they use some of these animals for market-related activities. And sure, it's appalling if you see donkeys carrying cattle feeds, and then the cattle is well housed at home, just relaxing and waiting for the feeds, but then the donkey doesn't eat anything. Can you imagine if these animals were talking? You know, the cattle and the donkey would not be very good friends. I'm sure they would really be fighting. But we need to realize that and also give animals their welfare. So we look at the practical part. The very first part was about the theory part, and now the practical part, the application part, which is very important for multipliers and for all of us as we work with farmers to really emphasize. And some of these pictures are taken from the African Organic Manual. I would encourage all of us to use them when we are training. And when we looking at animal husbandry, and in this case, the cattle, in terms of nutrient cycle, when they are integrated in a farm holding, these are some of the elements that will enable the nutrient cycle. That a good housing, proper housing, is actually a shed, and where animal can have space to rest, and fodder is also planted for the animals, so that the manure here, the slurry here can be applied on fodder, and some of the leftovers of the fodder can be used here for composting and the proper composting. And because you're likely to have excess of that manure in terms of the liquid form and in the solid form, the liquid form can be taken into the growing fodder, and the solid form can be composted, and then the composted can be used now or applied as compost in the garden, so that there is nutrient cycling enabled by your livestock into the gardens where you have food crops, into the animal fodder section, and then also the composting is done on a daily basis. This can be just a preoccupation, either, I mean, on a daily. If this is heaped here, it can be a daily routine or a weekly routine, and this is actually should be the preoccupation. I always say that if farmers can take their work seriously, this is an office, and you wake up in the morning, and very satisfying because you have the raw materials in your farm. And then it's the knowledge that needs to be organized to be able to enhance this recycling. And then we would see very good animals because they would eat fodder that is rich, and would also see excess production of foods, different type of foods and different varieties. So what is common in our villages is this picture where we have limited amount of feeds and the animals are just roaming about. And this is where even goats, you can see here, are always associated with destruction of either flowers or trees, because there's nothing down here, and naturally they like browsing. And if there is no other feed here, then you would see that goats will always climb up and try to feed. And there's, because of this limited knowledge on animal breeding, this is just left free range. And it's also part of it culture, because we have certain communities that this is just part of watching and just enjoying to see the animals grazing. But then we can improve that, and we can have some innovations so that we can adapt other methods that can be of much economic value, much environmental value when we plan properly. So where we see no recycling of manures, and this has also been said to cause a lot of the greenhouse emissions. So we have a lot of carbon monoxide here. We have carbon dioxide here, and the green gas, when we stop composting and we just pile this stuff here, then it doesn't contribute to our economic well-being. And this is where there's a lot of susceptibility to parasites and diseases, this kind of situation, free range. And even for the livestock, you can see they are so much susceptible when they're just left and they're all mixed like that, because this is where you have wild dogs and other pests actually attacking them. So when we're talking about improved animal husbandry on an extensive system, this would be 1 acre, 2 acre, and depending on scale, this can be adopted, where you have areas specifically for animals, and where grasses can be left and recycled, so that you have paddocks, and this is some kind of rotational grazing. And when animals are danging in one area and then that area is left, there's a lot of soil life regenerated around that place. The dung beetle is associated with the cattle, and they are very good workers for the soil, and that would be enhancing soil health in another way. And if there is some kind of rotation into these paddocks, that even reduces the energy that a person on the labor that is required to take care of the animals. I think the most important thing is the management aspect. How long should these animals be here? And as I said earlier, what is the carrying capacity of this land here to support how many animals? And then what are the environmental, the climatic conditions that prevail in this particular area? How much fodder do we harvest from this area, so that we can be able to now determine even our stocking rate? And then a separate area for growing additional fodder, just in case, because you may not always have all the livestock maybe mixed out there. You can have some livestock, like the young ones, kept in a separate space, and then they may not be able to compete with the older livestock, so that they need some special conditions, and this needs a lot of some knowledge, some application of knowledge. And I would advise multipliers to use this kind of pictures, so that farmers can be able to adapt according to their own situations. It would be good to have these animals arranged in such a way that poultry are very vulnerable. You can't keep them very far. They need to be very close to the homestead because of the attention that is needed. And you can imagine they need a lot of water. They need a lot of when they are laying, and the movements that you need to do between the house and the poultry unit is close, and as compared to the livestock, which are very far apart. Moving on, some of the approaches for this organic agriculture management is the efficient use of manures to fertilize the crops, integration of those animal production into the farm system, so that we have different types of animals that are integrated, as shown here, so that you have the big stock, you have the small stock, you have the shorts, and this is also important, because in case one doesn't perform well, then you can also have another one, some income. You will always have some income, because it's not easy just to be disposing big stock every day, but it's easy to have eggs, and you can dispose and have ready income on a daily basis. So that integration of the livestock production system has got those benefits. There is that human touch. Sometimes when you are having livestock, they always identify the owner by the voice, and some of the signs that you make, and that is part of animal care. And you would find that a stranger coming to milk an animal, for example, the animal would kick, but the animal, they have feelings, and you can tell an animal that is hungry, an animal that is angry. You can tell an animal that is sick. So they have feelings, and these feelings are supposed to be part of our management system. And that when you're inspecting and just visiting a farm, then you are also increasing the knowledge related to what you are raising. Care and respect for those animals is very, very, very important, because the way we handle them is actually their productivity, because they actually are sources of livelihood, so they need to be handled well. And again, a very important factor to consider in terms of management, the use of locally adapted breeds in order to prevent diseases and parasites. We minimize a lot, like the African zebu cows are well adapted to these East Africa conditions. The Ankole in Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi are very, very, very hardy animals. The Boran, Sahiwal breeds are very, very hardy in Kenya, northern Kenya. So that using these locally adapted breeds, some of them are also multi-purpose. You can still harvest milk, get milk, and also get very good meat, and they sell at, they got very good weight, attain very, very good weight at maturity. So all these are important factors. If we are having the local chicken, again, they are so hardy, and they can forage just on local materials, so that it's not always good to think that you need to have the exotic breed so that you practice organic animal integration. So, and when we are selecting these animals, and I think I mentioned it's good to think about the feed requirements and also the growth duration of that animal before you can realize its full potential, or because if you think about economic returns, then you need to consider that, and then the production potential, adaptability to those local conditions, and physical characteristics. I did mention that earlier, and this is just example of some of those animals we are raising, and they have different attitudes by different people. And some of these factors will enable us to understand. There are those who will just keep animals also because of prestige, because of their status in society. Somebody would want to say, I have 200 goats, yeah, and so that in a particular place, that is considered status. Just the same way somebody would be having a car and say, okay, me I have a BMW or I have a Mercedes, so that our traditional communities had this as assets. So these are just sample of suitable poultry structure and the needs for pigs. It's important for multipliers when supporting farmers, and when farmers are want to have, for example, poultry, any type of housing, make sure that it has some patching rails, some dust baths, and then some areas for nesting, and access to open ground. And these are just the general features, but I think may need to go deeper if we talk about poultry raising. There's a lot to do from right type of breed for a particular area, even for pig farming. These are all training workshops on their own. But important just to consider, like pigs, spaces for resting, access to some place where they can be able to keep themselves cool. They like muddy places because they have a lot of fat. So when they're exposed, they like to keep themselves cool. Also for brushing and natural materials to play with. Some of these things are actually what enables animals when we talk about animal welfare. They enable animals to achieve their full potentials. Goats like feeding on suspended forage and bedding off the ground. You'll find that they will waste a lot of feeds if you keep their feeds on the ground the way you do cattle. They would waste a lot, and that is not environmentally friendly. Also, they need enough space. Otherwise, they have horns and they can easily fight because that is their instinct. They like fighting, so that you need to, and they can injure each other, and they can also injure you. So it's important to. I had a goat at one time that was having some 2 feet horns, and one day it's only me who was able to either tie it or to tether it. And one day when it tried to also hit me, I decided that is the day it will be slaughtered. So they can also be dangerous, and you need to provide them with enough space and just understand their behavior. Cows just need enough space and also slopy floor for drainage of urine. There are some farmers who would keep animals because they want to have a lot of manure, and they call it boma composting, so that animals are living in places that are actually very, very, very muddy, and it's very easy for animals to have foot rot in those conditions. I observed that in especially in central Kenya some years back. I don't know whether that practice is still going on nowadays or not. And then some nutritional sources for livestock species. It's good to have some general knowledge on some of these locally available materials and even plant them. For poultry, the sources of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and vitamins. So cereals, most of the
Sorry for that. I have muted. You can proceed.
Yeah. So for most of the livestock raised, it's good to consider these food sources, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and vitamins. And such charts can help farmers even select which ones to grow, which ones to establish, especially during the onset of the rains, and which ones to use maybe after harvesting. Like for poultry at harvest period, the grains are actually in abundance. And at harvest period, you'd have, and that would provide carbohydrates. Then harvest periods, you'd also have a lot of the stalks, the maize stalks and stovers, which can be chopped and good for the goats and for cattle. You'd find that where chicken will get the grains, maybe cattle will get the stalks. And that kind of integrated approach towards the nutritional sources is very much encouraged. And then for the proteins, the chicken are actually very, very good scratchers and scavengers. And in our compost piles, you would find a lot of grubs and other worms, and this is also a source of proteins. For the pigs, leguminous fodder, grains, and kitchen waste would be very, very, very good and appropriate for them. For goats and cattle, leguminous fodder like lucerne, alfalfa, caliandra is very much appropriate and can be planted. And once established, it's just the maintenance. And it's good also to consider vitamins like some of the leafy greens. After we have eaten, we can also share some of those that are spoiled, or some of the, if we are having growing sukuma wiki and the lower leaves that we do not want to eat, that can also be recycled. Poultry can use them. Pigs can also use them. Fruit peels like banana peels are very good for pigs, and they are sources of vitamins. Sometimes what we do not use in the kitchen, we need to look at what animal we can raise, so that there's a lot of recycling. I like ducks because any food wastes, they actually eat a wide range compared to chicken, and they gain weight very fast. So it's good to know what type of wastes you are producing from the kitchen, so that what you are producing as waste is an input into another element. And then very important to consider the minerals, so that you can provide eggshells or grit, bone meal for the poultry, and also mineral leaks for sheep, and also providing them dried leaves, certain type of fodder trees produce pods that actually are rich in minerals. For example, if you have lucina leaves, dried lucina pods actually are a very good source of minerals for goats, and goats would really like them. And then some of the fodder systems, and in order to provide some of those minerals and those nutritional requirements, and how to integrate that would be like planting hedgerows, and also rotating some of those annuals with the perennials, and even with food crops. For example, you can rotate alfalfa, lucerne with your maize. You can even plant desmodium nowadays with the push-pull system, which again has multiple benefits, and that's just one some of the strategies that you can use. You can also plant on contours. You can plant vetiver, and I discovered that vetiver on contours does very well. And then during the dry season, if this is the only fodder available, and you can feed your cattle without them getting dry, without them withering, because of the harsh climatic weather that we have during the dry seasons. And then there are different type of management systems to enable rotational grazing. For example, where you can have these wires being moved and then you have the old animals separated with the young animals. And this would apply in areas where you have farmers with 3, 5 acres of land. Maybe for those who are having very small pieces, maybe the other system here would work, where we call it cut and carry. So very important to also think about pasture and growing indigenous pasture and harvesting seeds for indigenous pasture and resowing, because some of the indigenous pasture actually are very, very high, have high palatability and adaptability to the local climate. And it's good to have a diversity of them so that you can have some of those nitrogen-based and also integrated with the grass based. The leguminous are integrated with the grass based. And I think it's a practice. As much as we do seed saving for our crops, we need also to think about a focus on seed saving for fodder and growing indigenous fodder and exploring their use for our local livestock. Other ways of improving or adding value and managing and making sure that this is available is that during times of plenty, it's good to harvest grasses and convert them into fodder. I'm sure those who have witnessed in the recent dry season in Kenya, from around November to March, actually even the cost of hay went up, and that's an opportunity for some of those farmers who may not be able to even keep livestock, but can be able to just grow fodder for sale, and that is a source of livelihood. But once you preparing fodder, the management is that you need proper storage so that they do not go bad. And once dried, hay can stay for even 1 year without going bad. So that when we think about adaptability to the changing climate, we also think about long-term strategies on harvesting and storage, so that we can be able to monitor climatic conditions, weather patterns, and be able to keep stock that we can be able to feed adequately for maximum return. We can also make silage, and these are some of the practices that have existed with the polythene sheeting. And nowadays, we'll also mention that apart from using the polythene sheets, people can make silage even using the drums, the polythene bags and the drums. They can also be used, apart from using them as water containers, they can also be used. Another step that is key in terms of management is the area on animal health, and I think that is one most challenging. But here, the most important thing is to consider prevention and the multiplication, or prevent multiplication of infections. And then the second step is provide good growing conditions. The third is direct control treatment. That should be the last alternative. I think the animals that are raised on the same farm and they do not move and roam free range are less susceptible to tick attack compared to those that just move free range outside of their homestead. So some of these prevention measures are important, and it's good to look at the scale at which you are implementing or integrating your livestock. And then prevention measure, it also includes proper breed selection and then also quarantine. So these are some of the measures within the organic principles. And then vaccination, regular monitoring and vaccination should now be another. There are those that are acceptable in the organic system, organic standards, and those have been provided, and there are those that are acceptable. I think use of the use of certain antibiotics and a certain type of drugs are actually only used as a last resort, but the organic standards provide some of those that are acceptable. And these are just issues around reduction of stress is very, very, very important when we're considering our, and then direct treatment. This is actually the last resort when we cannot be able to do anything and we have to save the life of that animal. Otherwise, we're going to lose a lot of money and investment. Then we have to do that. It's good to also have knowledge on things like ticks in order for us to prevent. What are some of those stages and how are these related to the type of grazing management that we have, so that we can reduce infestation. So things like free range systems I've mentioned earlier will expose our animals to ticks, and these are actually very, very expensive. The acaricides now used are even not working, and I think it's an opportunity for us to also look at some of those organic alternatives and test them, so that farmers can be able to use local materials as much as possible. Other challenges like the liver flukes, and this is coming through grazing, especially in damp areas, and it's good for farmers to know when they are grazing the animals in very damp conditions, and in places like even in the cities, in towns, you get where there is poor disposal of sewage, and we predispose our animals to these pests. And then those gastrointestinal nematodes are actually a very, very big problem, especially for the shots and pigs and even cows. Some time back, there used to be legislation on restriction of animals in urban places, but then this has just been left. And it's good to know that some of the meat consumed that is not properly inspected will actually be predisposing people to health hazards. Apart from having economic loss, then it's also a source of health hazard to humans. So with some of those challenges, I think that comes to the end of this presentation. And if there is any other addition or any other considerations, then from other master trainers, then they are welcome. Thank you so much, and back to you, Ratemo.
Thank you, Ferdinand, for the amazing presentation. We have questions in the chat. I don't know if we just go straight ahead to that because of time, but what I've posted on the chat at Facebook is the content where he has got this. It's called the Organic Africa Manual. So the link is in the chat. Please make sure you interact with that platform and learn more about animal husbandry. So we have questions to you, Ferdinand. One of the question is, good morning, I have my turkeys. Some of them are having swollen joints. What could be the problem? That is Fred. Maybe you can attempt that.
Yeah, turkeys have similar diseases that affect chicken, and sometimes they need also vaccination, and they are commonly affected also by Newcastle and fowlpox and Marek's disease. And if you see them wobbling and maybe not, they also would need that vaccination. They are very, very, very vulnerable compared to chicken, and they can easily pass on when not taken care of properly.
Thank you. Another question from Masiza. How can I make my own rabbit pellets to ensure my rabbits are organic?
Deritu, any thought around making pellets?
Deritu is not online, but we have Collins online, one of the materials from GBA. If you don't mind, Collins, unmute.
Yeah, maybe, yes, you can make your own pellets, but you need a machine that will help you make the pellets. You have to understand the nutrient content of the feeds that you want, because most of the time, rabbits need a lot of fibers than proteins. So when you collect all your feeds, like you can collect hay, you can collect the maize, the vitamins, then you put them together. There is like a machine that you use to make the pellets. And you see now pellets are good to feed the rabbits because they are more nutritious than when you are feeding them those raw materials. Also, you can make your own feeds, mostly from the black soldier fly, with which you can use the larvas. You dry them, and then you will get the dry substance, which looks similar to pellets that you can feed them to your rabbits. But for you to make the pellets, you need a machine that will help you press all the resources together, then you get the pellets. Thank you.
Thank
you, Collins.
Okay, Ferdinand, back to you. You can either add before I ask more questions.
Yeah, it's good to think about how you can make your own feeds, and especially if you can link. And I think I've also seen some of those machines that can make those pellets, and they're not so difficult because you only need the grains and the dried unga, and then a mixture of that. Then you need just to know the formulation. But I think that is for another training.
Thank you.
The formulation of feeds, the formulation of feeds, and the areas around healthcare. I think there would be need to just have maybe some other training and workshop a follow-up kind of training focusing on that, because they are so wide and may not be able to just cover within this short time. Thank you.
I think I've noted that it's one of the buzz questions about rabbit pellets. Now, there's a question from Patrick asking about rabbits and guinea pigs. Can rabbits and guinea pigs be kept together? Who do I direct the question to?
I can answer that.
Okay.
I have kept guinea pigs. I've also kept rabbits. It is not appropriate. They do not exhibit the same behavior. And guinea pigs they can do very well on the ground. And if you keep them together with rabbits, they usually drop their droppings everywhere. But rabbits usually like just having their droppings in a specific place, so that if you keep them together and the place is damp, you'll find that rabbits will get will get some infection faster than the guinea pigs. Guinea pigs are a little bit hardy, so that mixing them may make the rabbits more vulnerable to diseases like pneumonia. Yeah, that's what I can say for the moment. And then even the guinea pigs are very aggressive in terms of feeding compared to the rabbits. So that if you put the feeds together, you'll find that most of the feeds will be eaten by the guinea pigs before even the rabbits are complete. So it's good to always separate these animals because they don't show the same feeding behavior. It's different.
Thank you. There's a question about cattle from Biwot. What is your advice on cattle being allowed to freely do selective feeding on field or confining them and providing food in relation to disease and pest management? Yeah, maybe you can respond.
So whether you want to do free range or intensive, that will depend on the carrying capacity of land, but and also your labor requirements. If you have fields and you can divide them into paddocks, you can let the cattle just do the grazing. But if there is limited space, then you can grow fodder and then do the cut and carry. And or you can do a mixture of both. So it's not that one is good than the other, but it depends on those factors. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace Misoy, are you online? Anyway.
Yes, I am.
So there's a question here about goats. What could be the problem with my she-goat? It is very healthy, but never gives birth. And the he-goats are there, but they don't make her. Why?
That's an interesting question. I don't even know how to answer, but I'll try. First of all, we don't know. She's saying it's not mating. Then, of course, it cannot give birth if it's not mating, because fertilization is not happening. The other question would be, why is it that it is not mating? Those are the issues. Could it be the problem is with the he-goats, the bucks? Because why are they not mating? Or is it that this she-goat is not getting into heat? And if it's not showing signs of heat so that it can be mated, then there is a problem. It could be on feeding. It could be a disease that it's struggling on. So I would advise the person who asked the question to contact a vet who can be able to assess the situation, because most of the questions on animal health, it's best handled when you've done a diagnosis to the livestock. That is how I can answer. Maybe my colleagues can add something, but for me, I would suggest she gets or he gets a vet.
Yeah, sometimes I agree. And if the he-goat is there, and it might be a problem with the he-goat because there's also infertility in these animals, and that is something that needs to be noted when there is very poor feeding, especially when they lack minerals. Then there is a likelihood of infertility, and it would be good to flush them up. First of all, just separate the male from the female, flush them up, and then if you've confined them, then you have to introduce the female to the male and not the male to the female. Because there are some males that are shy and actually unable, and there are some females that are very aggressive, so that they may not be able to want to be mated. But then you should observe the heat signs. There are heat signs for if you do the flushing, and observe the heat signs for the she-goat, and then introduce her to the male. The heat signs, the heat signs are like bleating. It can start at night. You've given the feeds, but it's just continuing to bleat. And then it will be shaking the tail and scratching the ground, but making and restless. And sometimes when you look at the vulva, it's also removing some stuff there. Yeah, so you need to also be very close so that you can be able to watch. Or it could be infertility sign for the he-goat, because maybe there are some he-goats that are just unable to mount the she-goat, and therefore you would not be able to have any mating taking place. So and now in the good management, you need to watch all these signs so that you can be able to remove those that are not productive, and so introduce others that are productive.
Thank you, Ferdinand. The last question from Nicholas Cheriot. How do I formulate poultry feed organically?
As I said, I think we can maybe reserve. Some of these would need a lot of other comprehensive learning, because we need to know you need to know the daily intake of that particular breed. You need to know the different contents in terms of nutrition contents of the materials you're having, and then what are some of those materials that are readily available, so that you can do the formulations. But they are doable. Some of these stuff are doable, but if it needs proper planning for that to be done.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat in Zoom from Christine. Apologies, Christine, I missed it. So she's saying, thank you for the insightful presentation, Ferdinand. Is it okay to collect manure from all livestock together and compost or manure from different kinds of livestock should be handled separately?
The word compost, comes from just the mixing everything. I think if you mix everything, you're having very, very, very good quality manure, and that is just a good thing to do. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Grace, you want to add something?
Yes, let me mention on the feeds, the formulation that one of our followers was asking. Actually, I think it is also important to consider the production of the ingredients, because if you're talking about organic feeds, then you also have to ensure that the feeds, the ingredients are organically grown, so that you can formulate your feeds for your livestock, be it poultry or any other. Most of our organic farmers do get to the market, buy different ingredients without considering how it was produced in the first place. So it's very important to consider the production of livestock feed.
Thank you. Ferdinand, would you mind dropping sharing? I want to share something with our participants on resources and I use to get more information about livestock integration. So thank you, Ferdinand. To our listeners, we have some platforms that have information about organic agriculture, including animal husbandry. So I'm sharing my screen to show you where Ferdinand got the presentation with pictorials. So this is Organic Africa Manual, developed by FIBO, one of our international partners. So if you go to your browser, you just go to Google, you will find this website. So when you go here, you can be able to learn more about the training on animal husbandry. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. So just go to your Google browser and go to FIBO.
That is important. That is important, Ratemo, especially when they are thinking of planning lessons with farmers. And some of those pictorials are very, very, very good. And they are free to usually print or even make into those booklets. And then they can it can produce a lot of discussion on some of those practices that are appropriate.
Yes. So for our listeners, anyone who works with farmers, even farmers themselves, as long as you have internet manuals on your phone, on your laptop, on your computer, just go to Google or any browser and look for Organic Africa Manual, and you'll be able to browse and learn on different topics. Right, Ferdinand? See, that's what we want. We want them to learn from all the platforms. So when you go there,
right, you are right. You are right. You are right.
So you just click on Start Reading. They have farm diversity, crop management, They also have animal husbandry, animal species, poultry. So please make time. All our trainers give you 30%. The other 70% of knowledge, you have to read, you have to research. You cannot get 100% from our trainers. You also have to look for information that you need. So this is one of the platforms I recommend you to use. We also have Infonet Vision. This is from Vision Africa Trust. Let me just load it. Yeah, so in this platform, it has components on plant health, human health, animal health, environmental health, including how to manage pests in animals and diseases. So please make time and go through this. I'm going to share all these during the sharing of the presentations. I'm just highlighting some of the platforms you can use to learn more. Then we have
even the question raised on the feed formulation. I think Access Agriculture has got quite some good even demonstration, even video on that. So I think it would be good to encourage them also just to, to do their own research. I like that.
Yes, like he has mentioned, we have another platform called Access Agriculture. This platform is unique because the videos are also translated. We have in Kikuyu, in Luo, in Swahili, English, different local language. So please make time. Like we have said, research is very important. You also need to learn from other platforms, so that when you go to farmers, you actually have even resources you can share with them. So when you go to Access Agriculture, you'll also see different videos on how you can make feeds from chicken, from livestock, all types of animals. So I just want to stop there because it was just a highlight of other resources everyone can go and read. We cannot give you 100% content, but we can direct you to where you can learn. Maybe Ferdinand, do you have any other? Or those are the three ones I wanted to highlight.
So far, I think and farmers' own experience is very important. Let's not forget that we need to keep on experimenting and generating our own information and testing it. Otherwise, thank you so much for the questions, and thank you so much for organizing the refresher. Ratemo, thank you so much, Grace, and all those who've provided support. And I think we keep doing good work and wish you the best.
Thank you, Ferdinand, and we really appreciate your presentation and your training content. Now, before we finish, I want to invite Sylvia. Next week on Tuesday, we have a session on organic markets and certification. Maybe you can tell our listeners what to expect from your training on Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ratemo, and hello to everybody. We are going to have a very exciting session because you know that, after all is said and done, we can do all the training we want, but unless we have produce to take to the markets, then we've not said much. So I want to be able to encourage, all the participants, please don't miss out on this one because we're going to be sharing on how we're going to make sure that we're able to get our products out into the market. We're going to be answering questions like, is there actually a need for organic produce? And if there's a need for organic produce, is there a good market? Are people able to access organic produce? And even the critical questions, is organic expensive? Is it affordable? Is it only for a few people? Is it safe? How do you know about certification? So I think that has enticed people, Ratemo, that this will be a very nice session, and we look forward to having it with everybody. Asante.
Thank you, Sylvia. You've heard it from our trainer. So on Tuesday from 10 a.m., please tune in to Facebook Live and same place on our Facebook page. So I request if you can turn your camera on, we say goodbye to our listeners, and we also say goodbye to our training. So bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. I have stopped the live. Let me